Alrighty, we're just going to get started. So happy Friday, everyone. Glad to have everyone here, and I really thank you guys for joining us for the Inspiring Capital session today. I know it's a Friday, so I do thank you all. And so to kind of just get started, my name is Nicolette Cabbell, and I'm the Recruiting and Community Development Associate here at Inspiring Capital. And for today's session, it's entitled Behind the Scenes, Working and Living as an IC Fellow. And so the purpose of today's session is essentially to hear firsthand what it's like to be an IC Fellow and the value add that it brings both to your professional and personal development. And so before I kind of let our panelists introduce themselves, I want to give you guys a little bit more information regarding to who Inspiring Capital is. Who are we as an organization? And so taking a step back, I'm actually going to share Inspiring Capital's mission statement. And so IC is a B Corp organization that offers learning and development services to professionals and organizations. And so our mission is to guide people to meaningful lives in all ways. And so we exist to give others the permission, invitation, tools, the guidance, the inspiration, accountability that we all want and need to grow purposely towards our wholehearted potential. And so that together, all of us, we can build a far healthier, more inclusive, equitable, just, and regenerative teams, organizations, societies, and economies. So I know that was a mouthful. And so the key thing that I want you guys to kind of take away from that big chunk of a mission statement is that here at Inspiring Capital, we want you guys to live meaningful lives in kind of 3 panels and how you can think about it: through yourself, through your teams, and then also through the world. And so kind of diving into today's session, I'm going to ask the panelists basically a set of questions. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then I'll leave about 10 to 15 minutes before the session to end so that you guys can ask for a live Q&A. I do ask in the interim, you guys remain on mute until we give that live Q&A part. So already I'm going to actually stop talking. I'm going to get started now, and I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, and they can say their name, which MBA program they're a part of, and then it'd be great if you guys could describe the fellowship in one word, what comes to mind. And whoever, Liz or Neha, whoever would like to introduce themselves first, go for it.
Yeah, sure. I can go first. So I'm Neha Mundra. I am a second-year MBA student at University of Maryland. So I'm here at the College Park, small town on the East Coast. I'm from India, so I moved pretty much in September 2019, and it's been a little crazy. Over the summer, I was an intern with eBay, and along with that, I was doing the fellowship with Inspiring Capital. And I think the one thing that Inspiring Capital brings to my mind as soon as I think about it is just like purposeful discussions. I think that those were like the best part of the summer, and definitely the ones that were lesser stressful compared to the internship. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thanks, Neha. And Liz?
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm a second-year MBA student at NYU Stern. I spent my summer with Williams-Sonoma Inc. In their sustainability department, and was also a fellow with Neha. And if I had to pick one word to describe it, I would say reflective.
Ooh, so all really great words. And now, thank you for introducing yourselves, kind of diving into the set of questions so that everyone in the audience can know. What initially drew you guys to the IC MBA Impact Fellowship? Like, why this fellowship?
Liz, you want to go first? It's fine.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, either way. But I think for me, I just don't think there's a lot of things like this out there, especially for MBA students. And, you know, the opportunity to connect with people in other business schools who are also interested in some of the things that I was interested in, was both what attracted me to the fellowship and also what I found really valuable about our sessions.
And I think my experience and my answer would very much be similar to what Liz says. I think the only thing I can add to what she's saying was that the opportunity not just opened us to this network of the people we were meeting every week, right? But it opened us to this whole network of Inspiring Capital fellows who had been with the team and the organization earlier, and how helpful or how easy they were to connect. And it's, being in the impact space, I think it's easier sort of to once you are in the network, it's easier to navigate through because most people are really helping. And I think Inspiring Capital definitely opened up that as an opportunity for me. Another thing that I was definitely looking from the fellowship, and I think it came through very well, was that I was looking to really understand impact in the different sectors. I come from a sustainability and recycling sector in India, which was really different compared to the East. And for me, it was very important to sort of understand how social impact works on a global level and in the West. And I think the various sessions and all the discussions definitely opened up a lot of opportunities and, food for thought for me.
Yeah, and kind of just putting everything together, you guys both emphasized about the network and then also being a part of a cohort that was similar aligned and things of that nature. And I think both of you guys also, in addition to the fellowship, also had an internship. And so that kind of goes into our next question with, why did you ultimately decide to be an IC fellow in addition to this other opportunity that you guys had also agreed to?
Yeah, that's that's one of the questions that I was really asked over the summer, considering because most people sort of ask about the workload you have or how you're managing everything in the middle of a global pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I think to be quite honest, it was just a decision I made because I wanted to get my foot into the door, especially because I was moving all the way from the East. I'm pretty sure that Liz would have a different story to share here. But I think for me, Inspiring Capital was more like a session, like a therapy session so many times when we used to have these discussions. And I think they helped me through a lot. So when it came to the internship and the final presentation of the internship, I absolutely appreciated how we were given this whole practice session that was only focused on how you want to deliver the presentation in the internship. And Nell specifically took time out to sort of do this. And I think for me, I was looking for one commercial experience and one social impact experience because I wanted to sort of, taste at least both the worlds and see where I wanted to go. And both the opportunities pretty much happened around the same time, like within a week for me, and were like, the perfect blend of the two worlds, at least I wanted to look at and sort of try out over the summer. So yeah, I think that was my reason. Another big reason was that, with my commercial internship, I knew I could devote some time to the impact sector meaningfully. And that was really important because otherwise I had to choose between the two. And I wasn't at a stage in my life where I really wanted to choose between the two, especially when it came to these 3 months. So yeah, that's pretty much my reason.
Yeah, I'd say it was interesting both in terms of like a timing and just offering. It was definitely an additive experience. I didn't feel like there was so much overlap between the two, my internship and Inspiring Capital, in terms of like learning the same thing twice. I think they definitely complemented one another and helped. Neha said, like having Nell like help talk me through what my final presentation was going to look like for Williams-Sonoma was hugely helpful. And being able to connect with folks who were kind of doing, even though we all had different projects, like learning more about each other's projects, giving each other advice about our projects was really valuable. I also think we didn't quite know what it was going to be like because it was kind of the first time they were trying a new model. And the fact that COVID happened, it actually made it even more important, I think, because all of a sudden, all of us were kind of isolated and we already were planning to do this online network. So like it made that network feel even more valuable because we really weren't seeing that many other people. And so it was like, you still got the networking aspect that you normally get at business school that I think had been reduced a little bit. And, networking with people who, we're doing really interesting and really different things, but all somehow related to impact. So I feel like it was kind of a confluence of events, but like a very except for COVID, like a fortunate confluence of events.
Yeah.
That is obviously an unfortunate thing.
For
But,
sure.
I think given that, it kind of made the best of that situation too.
Yeah, and I think you guys both touched on basically it created this type of network, and it's supposed to complement the internship that you guys had already agreed to be a part of. And that's essentially what this professional development opportunity is. It's not supposed to be a standalone, but rather a part of a bigger picture type of thing, and also developing a community, like you both have said, the therapy session, or like, being able to, when Liz is referring to Nell, that's the CEO of Inspiring Capital, and really, she really dives into the work and really believes in it and is always willing to help. And so going kind of into our next question in terms of what does a week in the life of an IC fellow look like, in terms of, given that this was a complimentary fellowship, what would you guys say, putting both, I guess, like the fellowship and the internship side by side, what was the time split like for you guys?
So it was about 3 to 5 hours a week on an average. We used to meet every Wednesday, if I'm not wrong, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. ET. And over the week, we used to have a set of pre-course like skills, basically. So every session had a couple of skills that, like, basically some readings or some cases that we wanted to do. While they were they said that it was compulsory, Nell at a point said that it's totally fine if you feel like, this doesn't really, like this particular topic doesn't really resonate with you. So you can totally skip it. So I sort of like the flexibility that they were giving us. And I was working on the Pacific time zone because my company was in California, but I was still here in ET, but it sort of always used to work out in some way or the other. They were pretty flexible in terms of recording a session if you're not able to attend it. But I think the one of the best things was definitely the sort of thought or the planning that went behind each and every session. So like a week in advance, we always knew what was going to happen in the next session, what were the objectives of the session, what were we to take out of it. So if we wanted to do any planning on our end so that we could make the most out of, say, a topic like impact investing, if you're interested in it, I think that I absolutely loved.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty similar to what Neha said. You kind of can space out the readings. It's not all reading. Like, it was a combination of readings, videos, podcasts. And I think, as we went, it changed a bit. I think we were becoming more mindful. I think everyone was becoming more mindful of screen time, for example. So there is kind of maybe like shorter videos or more podcasts. I think they incorporated meditation into it. And I think there was definitely kind of a self-care aspect to it as well, which I think was really helpful. And I think, everyone had a different internship schedule. So we know, some people were working many hours, some people were working less hours, some people had 2 internships at a time. And so, they would work with you in terms of, making sure to be flexible. But I also think people did, generally, maybe you had to miss one session, but generally were there every week or every other week, depending on the timing, and trying to devote their energy to what was happening at the time.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of just like to summarize everything, like they stated, it is deep. It takes a lot of work and effort. You get in what you put in, essentially. And so we are adaptable, and we do try to ensure that every fellow that is a part of the cohort is able to really give their best foot forward and ensure whatever lessons that you do learn are applicable to yourself professionally and personally. And so in regards to the next question, would love to hear, you guys kind of talked about, and you guys were a part of the same cohort, but what was your experience like being with other purpose-driven MBAs that met regularly? What was one of the key takeaways you would say?
I think it was absolutely wonderful. It was weird, and I think all of us sort of acknowledged towards the end on how we knew that we'd all become friends, even though we never saw each other really. If tomorrow Liz calls me with any of her problems, I'm pretty sure I'm going to give her as much time as possible. So, I think it was more than just a network. I think it was definitely like how you go to the MBA cohort and you end up making a lot of friends as well. And because it was a small 10 to 12 people, it definitely got everyone close. The good part of it was definitely the like-mindedness. So, everyone knew that we're coming from diverse backgrounds. There was so much happening in the outside environment, and nobody was scared to sort of acknowledge everything that was happening and, brainstorm about how you can really change the world. And I think that's definitely something I loved. Another thing, and I'm sure, you will be briefed about this later, but this was the sessions that we used to do, where we used to talk about ourselves for 5 minutes, I think, and then 2 minutes, all the other cohort members got a chance to question all our life choices pretty much. And I think that definitely got us a lot closer. We got to understand how people have worked in the various backgrounds. We had somebody who had worked in Chile, in India, in Nepal, and in different spheres of impact. And I think that was really eye-opening to sort of understand how people are making impact at the smallest and at the largest level possible in every sphere of the world.
Yeah, I think especially through those presentations that Neha was talking about, you really got a sense, like you knew it was an impressive group of people, but I don't think, no one's like gonna just say like, I'm so great. It's also like a pretty humble
Right.
group of people. So being forced to kind of share what we did before and our beliefs and values really opened the door just to see how incredible, everyone was in the cohort, and like the diversity of experience was really on display. And then also I think coupled with that is kind of the willingness to help. So especially kind of towards the end of the fellowship, where all of us were kind of wrapping up in various ways and dealing with, final presentations and weird situations with supervisors potentially, and like, all that kind of stuff. As we got to know each other more, we could really use some of that time that we had in those sessions to like help support one another through challenges or through opportunities. And it was cool to see that, like how many of, a fair amount of the fellows were able to kind of like continue doing the work that they were doing in some way. And, I just think there was like something that kind of really helped enhance the quality of our internships, because we weren't getting the typical in-person experience from those. And so this kind of provided a complement that like the stuff you might get after hours or at lunchtime that we weren't getting necessarily. We got some of that from this group in kind of a support manner.
Yeah, and I think both of you kind of speak on the amount of vulnerability that also is involved in the sessions in terms of being able to speak about yourself, but also that leading to being a better leader, both for yourself and also for a team. And so going into our next question, we talked about the sessions that were IC led, but kind of flipping it, did you have a favorite seminar speaker that you guys really resonated with that comes to mind? And if so, why did you find it impactful?
I actually think there are a couple, but if you want me to point out really one, I think it was Sir Victor. He is founder of Kamanu, and they have a purposeful app. And he was just talking about his whole journey and his experience and how he went about developing the business model and the product that they have. And I think one of the best parts of his session, apart from all the vulnerability and all his life journey that he shared, was we were talking about diversity in the board. And he, I think we were in a set of people where I absolutely appreciated that he acknowledged the fact that they are working towards getting more diverse people on the board. And I think those were that's the sort of network at least I needed. So for example, if there's an issue or a problem, you sort of acknowledge it and then you try and figure out ways on how to work it out. And I think just the fact that most of the speakers did that, but this is, one of the things that I definitely remember, where he said that they're not as diverse in terms of their board, but he's working towards it. And then he gave us like 3 actionable points on what he's doing to work towards it. And I think that was very impactful. And this was specifically happening at a time where, the protests were on and we knew there was so much external volatility. And the fact that we could acknowledge it in a very safe space definitely, made the whole fellowship and the experience very impactful.
Yeah, I agree that that session was really powerful. I also really like the session we did with Project Evident. They're a nonprofit organization that kind of helps other nonprofits evaluate data effectively. My background is in nonprofit management, and I think it's really easy to get into the mode of like measuring everything and you don't really know why, or like measuring what your funders tell you to measure. And I think the work that they are doing is really important, both in the terms of like streamlining measurement of impact and thinking critically about it, but also addressing some serious issues with data collection, trust, and inequity that, you feel when you're working in the nonprofit space. You're like, how many questions are we going to ask the same people when they're already dealing with so many things? So I just feel like there's strange expectations, and I feel like they really hit the nail on the head of some of discomfort I had felt in a fundraising role before. And so that was just really interesting to see, and something I could connect with personally, and also think would apply to a lot of people, even if they're not going to work at a nonprofit, when they think about philanthropy or just measuring impact in general.
Yeah, and so it's very evident that we do try to bring in speakers that do bring both purpose and impact within their professional framework. And so given that you guys are talking about an array of speakers that have had an impact, have you guys noticed the IC impact and purpose frameworks and tools resurface in your second year of your MBA, would you say? And if so, how so?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of frameworks, but I think one of the most important ones was the me, we, and world framework that IC follows, and it sort of inculcates how you make a change in yourself, the people around you, and then eventually the world, and that's how the whole sphere goes. I think definitely being in this whole virtual environment, you're sort of always thinking about ways to make an impact, but like, how do you, go about doing it, be it at a very community level basis or in terms of your job. I think I actually explicitly spoke about this framework in one of the sessions I conducted as the president of the Net Impact chapter of my school, which was focused on mental health, because I felt like that in general, in fact, the team was feeling like, this is something that we really need to bring about and talk about within the cohort, specifically considering everything that's happening. And I think it gave everyone an opportunity to sort of think not just about themselves or how they are feeling, but how maybe their families are feeling or how the people around them are feeling, and then what they can do in terms of change. So eventually we helped people sign up for programs where they could, give like guidance. I don't know, that there was an organization that was helping us sort of connect with people who needed help, and you could talk to them as a helping hand with some guidance. So we sort of got that into picture, and I think everyone sort of understood the framework definitely. So that was a big one in terms of really using purpose and really using impact in a way to change not just your life or your family's life, but much more, much beyond that.
I'd say there's kind of two pieces. I think it's very easy in business school to kind of follow the crowd. I feel like, and maybe less so now, but there's a lot of pressure to do certain things that other people are doing, and not like explicit pressure, not anyone necessarily being like, you should do this, but more like you feel it because everyone else is doing it, or it feels like everyone else is doing it. And I think Inspiring Capital reminded me like why that's not the path that I chose. And I knew that, and that was a purposeful decision. And so, like I'm looking in careers in sustainability, which doesn't have the same recruiting path as a consulting position might. And so, I know that my path will be different. I know that when I start looking for jobs, it will be different. And I think just being resolute in that choice, I think is really important, because it is easy to kind of get lost in the like, well, everyone's doing this, so maybe I should just do this too. And I think Inspiring Capital, because you're really reflecting on yourself and your values, it helped kind of crystallize that, like, you know, it needs to be what makes you happy, and what drives you. And if it is one of those more traditional career paths, great. And if it's not, that's okay too. And I think being around other people who are facing similar dilemmas was really helpful to know that you're not alone in that sense. And so yeah, I think that's one piece. And then I think the other thing that I really like the exercise, and it's something I hope to use in my next job, is the idea of like your own personal handbook, where we kind of wrote our own like user guide, like, this is how I like to work, this is how I need information from my boss. And I just feel like having conversations like that can cut down on so much like drama in the workplace if you're just upfront about like the way you work and the, you know, what you need and what stresses you out. So I really love that idea of having your own user guide, and I hope to use that in my next role.
Thanks, ladies. I think you guys both hit on a lot of different points. One, mental health, super important. I think Inspiring Capital really makes you realize, like, we are not robots. Like, we are actually humans, even though, you know, people are in business school and you guys are going to be leaders. It's really essential to ensure that personally you're okay. 2020, crazy year. I think we can all agree to that. And then I think, secondly, speaking in terms of thinking about like following the crowd, I really feel like it's important to know like what your own personal purpose is, so that it can allow you to further develop. And you guys kind of touched about this a little bit earlier, but essentially, how did your IC fellowship experience change, or I guess influence potentially your career path and further your professional development, given that you guys are both in your second year and almost to completion?
Yeah, and I think it goes a lot with what Liz spoke about, right? Of this whole conundrum and this dilemma that all of us were facing, where we knew that everyone else was going to get a consulting job, which is extremely high paying, and maybe in the impact sector, it's not the same. Or even if you get a job, it's the recruiting cycle doesn't work the same way as it does for most of the people who get very early offers, be it internships or be it full time. One, it was really nice to be in a space like that, so you know, you sort of knew in your head that you're not choosing the wrong option in life, because a lot of time, at least in the MBA cohort, I definitely felt it, considering everyone was running towards the positions. Another thing for me, definitely, because it was a tryout, sort of between the commercial and the impact sector, considering I come from the impact sector earlier, so I was already really drawn towards it, but I just felt like, you know, it would not be fair to me if I just draw this conclusion that maybe this is my final path and I wanted to give this a try. I think being sort of in both those, like, you know, basically sailing with one leg in this ship and the other in that, sort of helped a lot to really get my head around, okay, what do I like about this sector versus what do I like about that sector? So today, if you ask me to make a pro and con list, I can easily make one, and it would be, you know, a very data driven decision for me when I make a choice between the two. So that was very helpful, and that's, I think, one of the things that I would take a long way in terms of just how to work out between two things that you're really confused about. I think Inspiring Capital definitely played a big role in making me choose one of the most important decisions of my life.
That was great. I don't know if I can add much after what you just said, but I will say, yeah, I think there's the clarity that comes from it, and I think, you know, it's also the network of folks. Like, I haven't done a ton of job searching yet, and I know that I'll be doing a lot that next semester, and I know that this is a group of people that, you know, I can rely on and they can rely on me, and that I know that if I reach out to Nell, like, she'll help me if she knows someone. And so I feel like, and there's all the previous fellows too, so I feel like some of it has come now in terms of clarity and thought and purpose, and how do you want to evaluate a company that you may want to work for. But then there's another piece of it that's going to continue far beyond, which is the network and support through the fellows. And that's something that I'm excited to kind of continue to be a part of.
And just to add to what Liz said,
Sure.
I think it's a lot about taking that leap of faith, right? And I feel like being in a group of individuals who are so passionate about doing something sort of gives you the courage to do it, which you've been maybe holding back for a while. So that's just something to keep in mind, because if you're very passionate about one thing and if you're simply alone trying to do it, a lot of times we get discouraged with what's happening around us. But if all the others are really encouraging, it really plays a big impact.
For sure. I definitely think having a group of people that are purpose minded, and then also having Nell has been really great. Like we said, she's the CEO of the company and really believes in the work. And the alumni, I mean, Liz and Neha are a great example in that, just open and ready to share the frameworks, ready to really implement those things on a day-to-day. So it's kind of great to hear. And so I guess in your own words, what would you guys say was the most value aspect of being a part of the IC MBA Impact Fellowship? It kind of it seems like the network and things of that nature, but would kind of love to hear your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I feel like the answer would be the same for the two of us, but it's definitely a very purpose-driven network. And people who are really encouraging, very helpful. And apart from this, I think the other aspect was, all these sessions, the guest sessions that we used to have, and they were very nice in designing it in a way that it covered every sector of the impact. But midway through the course, they asked us for our feedback and sort of topics we wanted to cover. So for example, data-driven analysis in the impact sector was a very important one that came out of us giving feedback, and that's how they incorporated it. Impact investing, I think, is a huge one, and they already had it in their curriculum design. So I think just the fact that they're very agile with the way that Inspiring Capital sort of designed the whole fellowship, that was really a great help for us.
Yeah, I would echo everything that Neha said. I think, meeting this group of people that I just would not have met, I think is one of the biggest value adds. And then like the structure of the program. And it really is, I think, you said this before, it's kind of like you get what you put in. But I felt like most people were really putting in a lot. And if they had an off week or something because work was crazy, like we all understood that. But I think, everyone was committed to the program, and, as a result, we were able to like get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I just want to highlight too that I think that the fellows, everyone that's been a part of the program, alumni, it's like diverse, and we want people to want to share ideas, and we want people to continue this. This is not just hey, I'm going to do this for a couple of weeks and then I'm going to forget everything. It's more so that individuals are aligned with what their actual purpose and their impact is. And so I guess kind of leading to our last question for our panelists, final words of wisdom or insight, what would you give other graduate students interested in the ICA Impact Fellowship? Any words of wisdom for us?
That's that's a tough one, I think. I would say that if you get this opportunity, along with the internship, be it in whatever form, I would grab it in a heartbeat, because I think that it would not just enable you to, understand impact, which I'm sure you all do, considering that you're already here on a Friday evening. But other than that, just meet a lot of good people. It's 3 to 5 hours a week, and trust me, it wasn't a lot. Even if you, are extremely busy, I think everyone was just trying to sort of make time to do this, because it was like this session that helped you calm down a lot more than you think it was. Yeah, and I would say that if you're interested in the impact space, just keep on doing it. We need more people in this space, and I mean, if you're inspired, I think this whole experience or this fellowship would just encourage you or like nudge you towards that direction more than take you away from it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'd say it's not only professional development, but it's personal development. And I think that's really important. And I think that's one of the things that can get lost, A, in business school in general, and B, in a remote environment. So that's kind of why I felt even more now that this was a crucial part of my experience. The other thing, a piece of advice I would say is, whether or not you join the fellowship, connecting with folks one-on-one is super helpful. I think Neha was one of the first one-on-one calls that I had. And, I think they prompted us in the beginning to reach out to a fellow. And I think towards the end, it started happening more naturally. And that was so important because, you have your group meetings, you're used to doing stuff on Zoom by now. And I think getting to know each individual person and just having that conversation, I think was a really nice opportunity. And that was something that I was really glad they kind of facilitated in the beginning. And I think, is a key part of this program.
Yeah, we had a Slack channel. I mean, we still have it. And me and Liz started a conscious purchasing channel because both of us were very motivated to sort of purchase from places that are very consumer conscious. And now everybody just keeps putting stuff as we see it. And I still use that guide whenever I'm buying anything and everything.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, ladies. I'm now kind of just going to open it up. We are a small group, so feel free. But if anyone in the audience, if you guys have questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask them, if any. Oh, and also if you do ask your question, we'd love to hear your name and what school you're a part of.
Well, hi, ladies. My name is Travia Knight. I'm currently at UNC Keenan Flagler Business School. I am a first year. And so thank you for speaking with us tonight. I absolutely adore this opportunity because myself personally, I really enjoy professional development. And it's a blessing to be able to personalize that with personal, development as well. And I totally agree that it's easy to kind of lose sight of your personal development as well as your mental health. So I wanted to ask you ladies, what is something as far as self-care as my first question, what is something that you took away from the fellowship that you incorporate in your daily lives?
I think there were definitely a couple of things. One of the things is what Nell used to always say, who's the CEO again. She used to say, if you cannot find 20 minutes to meditate for an hour. And I think this is saying, and she used to say it to us. And, I think it definitely, played some sort of impact because I ended up meditating quite a bit after that. And that really, sort of helped me deal through it. My family's in India. I was going through a lot when it came to just the isolation. The other thing was that they sort of really pushed us on thinking very creatively or in a very using a very design thinking approach to solve any sort of problem. So whether you have a personal problem or a professional one, I think they give us a lot of these frameworks that now I can't even remember because they're so ingrained in how I think. But it just sort of started helping us to deal with things. So for example, one of the things that I have started doing is just writing a lot more and not taking it on OneNote, but writing it down. And I think this was probably said by Sarah or someone. And I don't know, I think there were things that they made us do that ultimately just got incorporated in the sense we operate in terms of personal care. And now it just has become a part of our lives, which we don't even understand how or what. But yeah, I mean, I think meditation definitely and their focus on, the spiritual aspect of your life played a big role for me.
So would you say that the fellowship alone was very transformative for you?
Absolutely. And I mean, it was transformative, not just in, gaining some knowledge sort of way, because that's what we are nowadays so accustomed to, especially on Zoom, right? You're always trying to sort of look at I don't know. I know my dad does a lot of he watches a lot of webinars nowadays to gain knowledge because that's the only way to sort of, get it. But I think it was much more than that. It was not just listening and then you're done with it. It was a lot about applying it in your daily lives. And a lot about absorbing things. I think the way they used to help us reflect after watching a podcast now just automatically has gone into my brain. So every time I'm watching I'm listening to a podcast, I automatically start thinking about how I would implement or how I would, transform this into a reflective thought process. I don't even need to write it anymore, how I used to earlier when it came to inspiring capital. So it was a lot of personal growth, as Liz said, very transformative.
Thank you.
I think for me, it's being, the word purpose is used a lot in this program in general. But I think being really purposeful about your choices and about your time, I feel like there's always more that you can do, and there's a certain point where you have to be like, no, this is enough. And I think, that's something I've always struggled with. And, I think something that Nell said, in addition, I forgot that other quote, Neha, which is like a really good one. But like kind of the idea, if you're not like taking care of yourself, you can't really take care of anyone else. And I think that's why the beginning of the fellowship focuses on you, and doing a lot of self-exploration and self-reflection. And I think I identified a lot of things that I wanted to be different in my next career. Whether it be like tensions, workplace drama, or like, like that kind of stuff that I've really prioritized. And I think to me, that's almost just as important as like the what of what I'm doing is like who I'm doing it with. So I think it's like realizing what's the most important to you and then using that to guide your decision making, both in like the short term of like what I do this semester and next semester versus what I don't do. And then also in career selection. So it kind of gives you that focus on like what is most important to you, what are the things you really want to do, what are the things that you don't want to do, and like also the need to give yourself a break. So I wish I had been as good as meditating. I've fallen down on that a little bit, but I have like every time the weather is like remotely decent, I make myself go for a walk in the, like sometimes in the middle of the day, because you just need to take a break from the computer. And every interaction right now happens on the computer. So I think taking that time away from a screen for me is like the thing that I'm trying to focus on this semester when I can, because it seems like everything I need to do is on a screen. So like prioritizing things that aren't on a screen for me has been really important.
Yeah, and I think kind of just to add on that, I'm not on the panel, but just being a part of Inspiring Capital, we kind of practice what we preach. And so like every meeting we start, we do have one word check-in. So like just how are you as a person, whether that be like good, bad, sad, unfortunate, whatever the instance may be. 2020 has been kind of crazy. And also like the meditation, me personally, I never ever meditated. So that was something where I'm like, I'm on a Zoom call, I'm closing my eyes and I'm like actively breathing. Like kind of weird at first, but now I try to actively just like take a second and like breathe, because that is important to do, and kind of just like take a step away. So kind of just, I do think self-care is like so important, whether that be both personally or professionally. But thank you for your question. Did we have any other questions that the audience had at all?
Yeah, hi, my name is Lee, and I'm first year at Georgetown's McDonough School of Business. And I'm wondering, did both of you or either of you have your internship secured before you applied for Inspiring Capital? And if not, did Inspiring Capital support with recruitment at all or in that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I applied for Inspiring Capital, no, I did not have an internship. And it was a nice process, I think, a very rigorous one. So it sort of, definitely validated the fact that the individuals that you would have in this cohort would be like people who are really passionate in the impact sector, very talented, I'm sure, because that was a huge interview process. And I mean, it was a long one and a very, coherent one, I felt. When it came to getting selected, I think I got an internship pretty much around the same time as I got Inspiring Capital, or maybe at least when I was accepting Inspiring Capital, that's when I got the internship. But we had a session much before the summer, before even the school ended, where they sort of asked us all these questions, and we were asked to fill whether we have an internship or we still looking. And I think right from April, they pretty much started supporting us or supporting anyone who needed an internship. And I thought that was really cool because that was definitely out of the scope of the program. The program was supposed to be over the summer, but they definitely helped us really understand our interest and sort of make relevant connections. I think we met like twice, right, Liz, before the summer started? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it was like March and April and May or something like that. Yeah, similar to Neha, when I applied, I didn't have an internship. And the interview process was rigorous. And I think that also was good preparation for my other interviews, because there was many different formats. I don't know if it's going to be exactly the same, but there were like, individual tasks, there were some group things. And I think it actually helped as I then interviewed for other internships. I think I got my internship shortly after I accepted Inspiring Capital. So when I accepted, I did not know what else I was going to be doing, but I did know that if I needed the support getting something, that I now had an additional source of support. And I know Nell was like, look at my LinkedIn page, and if you see anyone you want to talk to, I'll introduce you. Like it was very hands-on. They had a resume book, but I feel like before the start of the summer, everyone got something. I feel like the resume book ended up being very small because most people secured something, but I think there were a couple folks that they helped get internships. So I think that's a great offering because, I think there are also, I think may have been some folks who had something lined up and then it changed because of COVID. So there was some like flexibility needed there.
Yeah, kind of just to piggyback on that, you don't necessarily have to have an intern set up. However, we do support individuals and will provide, like they both said, like a resume book essentially of anyone who doesn't have an internship, and kind of pass it around to our network of organizations that are social impact focused if necessary. So just to clarify that. Were there any other questions?
Hi, my name is Dean. I'm a first year at Columbia Business School. I'm curious for both of you what the community of the cohort and the alumni network, like what your experience has been since the summer ended with that community and that alumni network.
Yeah, since the summer ended, it's definitely not been something that you're actively in touch with, like how you were, we were meeting every week, we were spending a lot of time together. Having said that, I think it's been super encouraging overall. I see a lot of LinkedIn posts and we're always like commenting at least on each other. So in your head, that you're always being remembered in some way or the other. I think it's sort of tough to put it into words, but the relationship that we all developed was, I don't know how, but nurtured in a way that you can really reach out to them via an SMS text rather than, constantly keeping in touch with them. Or, yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm a little, off my words here because it's very hard to explain how I feel about these people. But I think, they're very open in general. For example, people who were in the previous cohorts who I've never met, but if I reach out to them saying that I was an IC fellow and, I need help with this, or I need to understand how your journey was or whatever, they are pretty responsive. I've never had someone I've reached out to and they've not responded till now. Probably reached out to about 5 to 7 people at least. So yeah, and I'm sure Liz sort of resonates with this, but yeah, with the cohort, I don't think it's as formal as sending a LinkedIn message anymore. I think we can just simply text each other or email each other, and we're pretty good in expecting some sort of help or some sort of, push in their network if we ever need to.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of thing where, you can kind of pick up where you left off. So even if that was 3 months ago or 4 months ago, that connection is still there. I think the other thing that's been interesting is many of us are like the leader or co-leader of our net impact chapters at our school. So we've been sharing ideas about how to engage our various members in different activities. And Nell also has a relationship with the head of net impact. So like there's been some conversations there. So yeah, and I think the other thing that was valuable was there were several meetups during the summer with other IC fellows from previous classes. And so those are really great. And I definitely encourage attending those because, one hand you're like another night Zoom thing, but it was totally worth it. Both times I went, I met a lot of really great people, and they all were just really happy to see one another from their previous groups, which was really nice to see how those relationships kind of maintained, or even if they didn't stay as much in touch, they still felt that same connection and warmth as they did the first time. So yeah, I feel like it's something that even if you're not talking all the time, something that maintains its strength and that's there for the long term, is how kind of I would describe it. But it also reminds me that like I want to catch up with some folks over break now that like the semester is ending.
Yeah, I think we'll have to tell Sarah to arrange a happy hour.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think we should do that because I haven't seen everyone in a little while.
Yes, kind of echoing that, we try to be a community of purpose-driven leaders. And so I know it's getting closer to 5. So just wanted to kind of do a last call if anyone had any other questions. And if not, that's completely okay. But if not, I really want to thank the panelists. Thank you for taking the time to speak with everyone. And then also I thank you guys as well to hearing everything about the IC Fellowship. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Yes,
Thank you.
I had, it's not a question, but I'm not sure how to get in contact with you all. So could you like maybe drop
Oh, yeah. Do you want to, do you actually, we can reach out to you. Do you want to drop your email within the chat? Does it let you guys?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll be sure to take down your information and then send like a follow-up email. Perfect. You just write it down.
Yeah, I have a logistical question, I guess. I have been the first webinar I've been able to attend. And so I don't know if it's all right in the session to ask those kinds of questions.
Yeah, for sure. Go for it.
So the cohort, I think I heard Neha say it's around 10 to 12 people. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
And what is the like typical application pool and kind of like acceptance rate, I guess?
So typically, I'll take like last year's numbers. So typically we receive over, I want to say last year we received about 175 applications. And then from there are 4 rounds. So there are a lot of like vetting process. So you submit an application, and then after that, then there is a video round. And then after that, there is a homework, and then there is a group interview. So those are kind of the stages. And then from there, we do select only and we keep it intimate on purpose. We don't want too big of cohorts. It just makes the experience a little bit less rich, we find. And so from there, can't really name the acceptance rate off the top of my head, but it'll be about like 10 to 12, not 10, but like probably like 12 to 15 individuals. It just kind of also depends on like the number of applicants, and then kind of looking at the applications as a whole holistically, like what type of applicants are we actually getting within the pool? Does that clarify your question? Okay, cool. Yes. Any other questions? Definitely open to if you guys have anything like outside the panel or any other questions I can clarify for you guys, feel free.
Yeah, so what was if you can answer this, what was the youngest fellow in the program, like as an age?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know the youngest age that's been, because it's always first year students, but you guys know, like typically people applying to business school, typically, I want to say between like 22, 23 is like rather young. But I don't know. Did you guys have, I guess Liz and Neha, did you have the youngest person? What was the youngest person in your cohort's age? Do you guys know off the top of your head by any chance?
No, but to be quite honest, not sure about the interview process, but at least when it came to the cohort, it did not feel like, someone had 10 years of experience versus someone had really low. I think everyone was an equal, to be quite honest. I come from actually 2 years of experience. So I turned 25 before I did the summer, so I was 24 during the summer. Not sure if there was anybody younger at that time, but I think it ranges somewhere, as she mentioned. doesn't really, I mean, I didn't feel that that was in any way had any impact, at least in the quality of discussions or, what we were discussing, what we were passionate about.
Yeah, I'll echo that as someone who's on an opposite end of the age spectrum. I'm like, how old am I now? I'm 37. So I'm probably one of the older members, but it didn't feel that way. So I think everyone kind of brought their own unique flavor. And the fact that we don't even know, like I did not know how old Neha was until right now. I don't know if she knew how old I was. So it didn't play a huge role, which was nice. But you still got a lot of different perspectives, which I think is also really important.
Great. Any other questions we can address, or are you guys all set? Great. Well, on that note, I do hope everyone has a great weekend and really appreciate everyone attending.
Have a good one.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, it's just us. I'm like, is there anyone else in the meeting? I do want to thank you, ladies. I hope you guys, I thought it went really well. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to kind of hop on the call. Any questions, comments, concerns? How we feeling?
I think that went pretty